single dad dived into the sea during storm to save a mother and child. Next morning, yacht, the sea was alive that night. Winds tore at the sky, and rain fell in slanted, furious sheets. The old pier creaked under each surge, ropes thrashing, gulls screaming into the dark. Most had long since taken shelter, doors barred, lanterns dimmed. But not Jack Rowan. He stood at the edge of the dock, his jacket plastered to his back, eyes fixed on the boiling horizon. Somewhere behind him, through the downpour, came the faint tremble of a small voice. "Dad, come inside." Lila, 8 years old, curls clinging to her cheeks, a blanket around her shoulders. She stood in the doorway of the boathouse, lantern light trembling in her hands. Jack turned slightly, managing a smile. "Just one more minute, sweetheart." He'd said the same words 3 years ago on the night his wife's boat went missing. Since then, storms had never been just weather. There were ghosts with thunder in their lungs. The wind shifted, and then, faint, cutting through the roar, a sound. A cry. Jack's head snapped up. Out beyond the breakwater, lightning forked, and in that split second, he saw it. The white hull of a yacht, half-turned, light flickering once through the rain before being swallowed whole. "God!" His voice broke into the storm. He threw off his coat, grabbed a rope and lifebuoy, and dove. The water was shock and silence, cold as grief. He swam through it like a man chasing something already lost. Each wave crashed like a wall, dragging him back, but he kept going, breath by breath, kick by kick, until his hand struck fiberglass. The yacht lay on its side, windows shattered, sails shredded against the mast. Through the porthole, a movement, the pale face of a woman clutching a child. Jack dove again, wrenching at the jammed door until his shoulder burned. It gave way with a scream of metal. Salt water poured in. He grabbed the boy first, small, limp, maybe 5, then the woman, her hair slick across her face, her grip fierce as terror. When he dragged them to the surface, she gasped his name without knowing it. "Please, help him." "I've got him," Jack rasped, hauling them toward the distant blur of his fishing skiff. He'd left its motor idling in the cove earlier that evening. Luck, or mercy, brought it back within reach. By the time he reached the shore, his muscles shook with exhaustion. Lila ran to meet him, barefoot in the rain. "Dad!" "It's all right," he gasped, lifting the boy into her arms. "Get the blanket, quick." They carried the strangers into the cabin, built the fire back up, stripped away the soaked clothes. The woman, Illara, she whispered later, lay half-conscious near the hearth, clutching a child even in sleep. Jack watched the flames lick higher, heat returning to their faces. He didn't know who they were, or what had brought them to sea in a storm like that. But he knew the look in her eyes when she finally stirred, someone who had run out of shorelines. Morning came slow, gray, and heavy. The storm had passed, but the sea bore its scars, debris scattered like bones along the sand. Out beyond the cove, the yacht's white hull leaned half-submerged, one mast pointing uselessly at the sky. Inside the cabin, the smell of salt and smoke lingered. Illara sat near the fire, hair damp, fingers tracing the rim of a mug. Her son, Theo, slept with Lila's sketchbook open on his chest, a crude drawing of 2 boats beneath a rising sun. "You pulled us from the water," she said quietly. "I remember your voice before I blacked out." Jack shrugged, half embarrassed. "You'd have done the same." "No," she said. "I wouldn't have known how." He studied her then, not just her beauty, though it was there in the quiet curve of her profile, but the way she seemed half-transparent, like light seen through glass. She wore a silver bracelet engraved with letters, EV, and when she noticed him looking, she turned her wrist inward as if to hide it. Outside, gulls wheeled above the wreck. The world seemed to be holding its breath. The next days unfolded softly, as if the sea itself had decided to rest. Illara stayed, just until the Coast Guard could come, she said. In truth, she seemed reluctant to leave. She helped hang laundry, cook with whatever Jack had, mostly potatoes and bread, and mended Theo's torn jacket by lamplight. Lila and Theo were inseparable. They built sand forts, chased crabs, drew lighthouses in the margins of old newspapers. Sometimes, when laughter drifted through the open windows, Jack caught Illara watching them, a look on her face that was equal parts wonder and ache. At night, when the wind picked up again, she sat by the window, staring out over the dark waves. "Storms used to frighten me," she said once. "They still do," Jack admitted, "but they keep me honest." She smiled faintly. "You lost someone, hey?" He didn't ask how she knew. "My wife. 3 years ago. Same sea. Different storm." "I'm sorry." He nodded, the silence saying more than words. "You?" "My husband," she said. "That yacht was his. I thought if I could sail the same waters, I'd find courage again." She looked down. "Instead, I nearly drowned my son." Jack wanted to tell her she hadn't drowned anything, that some people were just called back to the sea to learn how to breathe again. But he said nothing. Instead, he handed her his daughter's drawing from the night before, a woman and child standing beside a lighthouse. At the bottom, Lila had written, "They found home." By the 4th day, the world came knocking. A sleek patrol boat glided into the cove, its engines low and polished. Men in uniform stepped out, followed by a reporter with a camera. They called her name, Ilara Voss. Jack's hand stilled on the railing. The name hit like a wave. He'd heard it before, a story half whispered on the news about an heiress who vanished at sea with her son. The men swarmed ashore, polite but cold. One offered her a coat, another handed her a phone. Cameras flashed. Ilara looked at Jack, really looked. Between them hung every word they hadn't said. "Mrs. Voss, a guard called. Your family's been searching nonstop." She turned slowly, her voice calm but distant. "Please tell them we're safe. I'll be there soon." When she faced Jack again, her eyes shimmered. "I didn't mean to lie. I just needed to be someone else for a little while." "You don't have to explain," he said softly. "I do. You saved us, and I—" Her throat tightened. "You gave us something no one else could." He shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. Just don't forget what peace sounds like." She hesitated, then stepped closer, close enough that he could smell the salt still clinging to her skin. "How would I forget," she whispered, "when it sounds like your voice?" The words lingered like mist. Then she was gone, led away to the waiting boat. Theo turning back to wave, his small hand clutching the shell Lila had given him. The sea went back to pretending nothing had happened. Jack returned to his days, mending nets, checking traps, boiling coffee that always tasted of smoke. Lila stopped asking when they'd visit the lady and the boy. Children sense what adults refuse to name. Still, every so often, he caught her drawing Ilara and Theo on scraps of paper, tiny figures under a calm sky. And sometimes, at dusk, when gulls dipped low over the water, Jack thought he heard laughter carried by the wind. Weeks passed. Winter crept closer, mornings pale and sharp-edged. He spent one dawn repairing his boat, the same one he'd taken into the storm. The board still bore faint marks where ropes had bitten deep. When he walked back to the cabin, a letter waited on the doorstep, cream paper sealed with silver wax. Inside, in elegant handwriting, "The yacht will be salvaged, but the sea already returned what mattered. I'd like to see the shore again, not as the woman I was, but the one you met that night. Ilara." Beneath the letter lay a document, a deed to a new fishing vessel, signed in his name. Jack read it twice, the edges trembling between his fingers. He didn't need her money, but the gesture wasn't about wealth. It was gratitude written in a language of tides and second chances. Lila found him standing there, eyes distant. "Dad?" He smiled faintly, just as he's sending something back. She came at sunset. No cameras, no entourage, just a whisper of wheels over gravel and the sea turning gold beneath the dying light. Ilara stepped out, hair loose, no makeup, her silver bracelet catching the last sun. Theo ran ahead, shouting Lila's name. Jack stood by the dock, unsure whether to move or breathe. "You came back," he said finally. She nodded, voice unsteady. "You once said storms keep you honest. I think you were right. I spent weeks trying to return to that old life, but it felt wrong, like wearing someone else's name." He glanced toward the water. "And what name fits now?" "Ilara," she said simply. "Just that." They stood in silence as the children laughed nearby, chasing gulls. The wind smelled of salt and wood smoke. Then she stepped closer. You dove into the storm once, she said softly. Would you do it again? His eyes held hers. Only if I knew who I'd find. She smiled, that quiet, fragile kind of smile that belongs to people who have already lost and chosen to love anyway. When he reached out, she didn't hesitate. Their hands met, rough calluses against soft skin, and something between them steadied, like an anchor finding ground. The tide rolled in, touching their boots. The children's laughter faded into the hum of the waves. Above them, a single gull turned slow circles against the glowing horizon. Jack exhaled, long and deep. For the first time in years, he wasn't waiting for someone to come home. He was already there. Some storms don't destroy. They return what we thought we'd lost in a different form. If this story found you, stay a while. There are more like it. Stories of second chances, of tides that lead hearts home.